From church-going Christian as a child to a paranormal investigator as an adult, our guest this week finds out about the dangers and the deception of being a ghost hunter on this week's part 1 of 2 Spirit Answers podcast. Well, I'm so excited to have on the podcast today Dana Emanuel, a former ghost investigator. Dana, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's an honor to be on your show, Alex. It really is.
Well, thank you.
Anytime that I can share my testimony is quite an honor, and I know that there's much power in the testimony.
Absolutely. And before we get to the meat of the testimony as it relates to your experiences in the paranormal, can you kind of just give us a brief backdrop on what your spiritual beliefs were before you got into the ghost investigations?
Well, when I was growing up, I went to church far back as I can remember. My dad always had me in church, a Christian church. I've grown up in the Pentecostal church and also Church of God. And so I believed in heaven and hell. I believed that Jesus was the Son of God. And I was baptized probably around the age of 9.
I know in your testimony video, you talk about how your foray into the paranormal kind of started in a couple of different aspects. One, a major part was your living in your grandmother's house. Can you kind of explain a little bit of how your childhood experiences and your beliefs growing up then overlapped with those experiences at your grandmother's house, and I guess what those were?
Yes. When I was growing up, I was always interested in the paranormal, anything to do with it. I mean, I liked things about the UFOs. I also liked any kind of stories about hauntings or even exorcism. Anything to do with spirits, I was always really interested in. So my interest, though, turned into something bigger after I moved into my grandmother's house. I moved into my grandmother's house when I was, it was back in like 1996. And while she was bedridden and I was moving in to take care of her full time. It was me and my whole family. Excuse me. But while I was there, my grandfather had already died like 18 years prior to this. I might be wrong on that, but it was about that long. And so other people that lived in the house with her before me had mentioned, that they thought that Granddaddy was haunting the home and that he was there just watching over grandmother. So at first I was like, okay, oh yeah, so. But when we did move in, we all started hearing noises. We would hear right in front of her bedroom in the hallway, you would hear footsteps in the middle of the night walking up and down the hallway. And
Wow.
When the kids were in bed asleep, you would hear them footsteps. Then there was times where she had a music box in her room, and it was a glass music box and had a little rose in it. And every now and again, that it would just turn on and play. And it was one of those wind ups. So you would have to wind it up, but that would happen. Then we would hear noises in the kitchen at night, and it would sound as if like one of our kids got up and they were getting into something. Well, there was a couple times where we would hear that and we'd wake up and we, of course, no longer heard the noise, and we'd walk in there and we'd check everything. Kids are in bed asleep. So there was another night. This was when I found out that the paranormal was indeed real. We were laying asleep. My husband and I, we were sleeping in what used to be the family room, and we made it like into a big master bedroom. And while we were in there, there's sliding glass doors between our room and the kitchen. Now you could see full view of the kitchen whenever you would look through there from our room. Well, we was in there asleep one night, and the noises, started up, and I kept hearing it. So finally I was laying there, but I hadn't opened my eyes yet. And I kept debating on opening my eyes because although I really wanted to see what it was, was kind of afraid because I knew, because what had happened, before, that it was probably something paranormal. So as I kept laying there, I finally decided, okay, I'm going to open my eyes. So I started hearing the noises again, and I opened my eyes, and sure enough, the kitchen table chair moved across the floor.
Wow.
And I jumped up and I ran out the side door. And my husband, he woke up because I cleared him. I mean, I went over him, and I went out the side door, and he come running out there, and he was like, "What's wrong? What's wrong, Dana?" And I said, I started crying and everything because as much as I love the paranormal, when something like that happens to you, I mean, it can shake you up.
Oh yeah.
If you're not used to it, like when I got into the ghost hunt, I got used to that kind of thing. But at this point in time, I wasn't used to it.
Right.
So I was crying and everything. And he told me, he says, Dana, he says, don't worry about it. He said, it's probably just your grandpa looking over your grandma. He said, it hasn't tried to hurt us or anything. And I was like, well, I don't care. I mean, I was just really shook up. But as the situation was, my grandmother was there and she was bedridden. So I'm like, okay, we're just going to stay. So we stayed there, and, we would continue hearing noises. Sometimes, like I said, whenever we would hear the noises in the kitchen, we would find things like the milk out. We would find dishes moved, stuff like that. Well, anyway, so I started going out to graveyards, ghost hunting, because I got, and another thing, at this point, not only was I wondering if ghosts were, here, if paranormal was real, but now I got to thinking, okay, if that's my grandpa, why is he here and he's not in heaven? And wait a minute, so I had more questions then about the afterlife.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I don't mean to interrupt you, but just real quick, I just wanted to say, because before this, you said you were raised in the church, but it sounds like you didn't really until this had happened, all these experiences at your grandmother's house, you hadn't really thought too much about ghosts and the paranormal. Am I right?
Right.
Okay,
yes.
So these kind of experiences really opened you up to that.
Yes.
And as it relates to your grandfather, then I can already hear a lot of the skeptics out there that don't believe in the paranormal. They would say something like, those are some fascinating experiences, Dana, but I can't help but wonder if you were just looking for something that could be comforting in the wake of your grandfather's passing. And how would you respond to something like that?
Well, first off, I'd like to say that in itself to me would not be comforting, because as I said, I believed in heaven. I still do believe in heaven and hell. Right. So I would rather my to know that my grandfather is in heaven. And when after that happened, I did go to the graveyards to check and try to investigate and stuff, but I wasn't doing it in my grandmother's home. And that was because I felt like if I go to the graveyards, I'm going to leave whatever's there. That right. I'm not going to bring it home. So I kept thinking it was okay to go out and do it, but not in our home. Now, a lot of investigators feel that way. When I was in the paranormal field, and I did get into the real paranormal investigations, that is with a lot of investigators. That's a rule with a lot of them is, you can go and investigate somewhere, say your prayers before you leave, your protection prayers, and then go home. But don't do it in your home, because there's no telling what you can bring in your home. And they're right about the last part, but you shouldn't do it anywhere, because they really do follow you home all the time, not some of the time. And I don't care what kind of prayers that they say, because they are going to follow you home. When you say those prayers, you're truly leaving God's umbrella of protection. If you do believe in God, Jesus, the God of the Bible, you're not going to be protected, even if you're a Christian, because, when we're going outside God's will, God's not going to bless us sin. He's not going to bless us going out there and using divination, talking to the dead, because even if you're sitting there just, doing EVPs and all this stuff, that is a seance. If you're communicating with the dead, that's what that is. I noticed too, not to go off that subject, but a lot of people, like right now on paranormal shows, they'll go through a place and they'll say, boy, this place feels like something's evil here. And they'll say, well, somebody probably used to do seances here in the past. But they don't realize that when they're communicating with the dead, which is really not the dead, but the spirits, that's what they're doing. That is a seance, and like I said, it conjures up demons, and it's dangerous.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that. And we're definitely we're going to get into some of those more intense spiritual encounters here in a second. And I also just wanted to say too, as it relates to those experiences that you've already mentioned at your grandmother's house, it wasn't just you that was experiencing these things. These were experiences that were noticed by everyone in your family. So
Yeah.
the odds of something like that happening once is it's very small. But if you start talking about more than one time, multiple people are having these experiences, and that to me is very, very, very unlikely that would happen. So I just wanted to really highlight that.
Yes, and also the family members, whenever we would, or my husband or the kids, whenever something would happen, it was never a case of, ooh, there's stuff here happening. You know what I mean? Our house is haunted. It was terrifying. It was something we didn't want.
Right.
It's one thing to watch a scary movie, say about a haunted home. Okay, it seems thrilling and all this stuff, which it is, to society, but anyway, to people that doesn't know better, it's thrilling and everything, but it's different when it's in your home, because you don't know what that spirit can do, and that's really usually always a case, which we'll talk about in a little while, like you said.
Yeah. You also have mentioned you were watching a TV show as well at this time that kind of got you into the paranormal, and can you kind of explain how that played a role in your getting into the paranormal, watching that show?
Yes, it was after. Okay, when we started, I better back up. Whenever we did our first investigation, we went into a graveyard, because this also played part, with me really wanting to get into it. Was we were there's a big gravestone right there at the beginning of the graveyard, and it looks really spooky,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So when we went to this graveyard, we went to that stone first, and we were standing there, and I had my recorder and everything. Now back then I had the tape recorder. It wasn't digital like they are now. And so whenever we would record, we just kept doing the recording. And then when we get home, I would check it, and listen to it. So we did the recordings. I asked at that first grave, is there anybody here? If so, what's your name? All the normal questions. So when we got home, and also we got a picture, and it was of an apparition. It was a full-bodied apparition. So that was thrilling.
Wow.
When you get the evidence, it's like, wow, everybody passes around, look what I got,
Yeah.
But, and then when I got home and I listened to the tape recorder, and it said, when I was at the first place where I was asking questions. And when I asked what was the name, it said the name Frank. And it said it clear as you could hear it, So when the next day I told my daughter, I said, you know what? I said, we need to go back and look at the name on that gravestone, because I'm dying to know if it says Frank. So we went back and we went to that gravestone, and I looked down at that gravestone, and the first name was Frank. So that right there, those two things, the apparition and then the EVP. And we also got other EVPs, but it wasn't nothing as clear as that. So after that happened, and then I started to watch, then I really started wanting to watch it and stuff. So there was a show back then, and it was called Dead Famous, and it was with Chris Fleming and Gail Porter. And what it was they would go to places, like, say, for instance, they would go to see about say Elvis, they would go to, I can't remember if they really went to Graceland or where they went, but they went to try to talk to his spirit. And they would get some pretty compelling evidence. So that just really kind of fueled my interest in the paranormal. So that was when I got my first computer. And then after that, I started, talking to other people that was in the paranormal, the paranormal community. I got MySpace and, other social sites like that, the meetup groups. And then one day I found on Craigslist, there was a man and he was looking for a paranormal investigator for his group. Well, so I called him and we talked for a long time on the phone. Now this guy, he was obsessed with the Ghost Adventures group, and they had went and found a lot of pretty compelling evidence when they went to Nevada. They went to the Gold Mine Hotel, and they went to the Silver Queen, I think it was called, but they went to quite a few investigations. And anyway, he was really obsessed with that. Well, after he seen that, he went up there and him and just another man, and went to all those places they went to, except the gold mine. He couldn't, there was no, or not the gold mine, what was it called? Goldfield Hotel. I'm sorry. He couldn't get access in there. But to make a long story short, after talking to him and seeing how interested he was, I mean, we just kind of fueled each other's interest in it, So I went over there and I joined the team. It was only him and another man, another young man, and his daughter. But me and my daughter actually went over there and we joined his team. So I got into it with him, and we used to go like Virginia. I live in Florida, by the way. We would go to places like Virginia. We would go to places, different states. And what we do is, when people had a haunting, because he had a website at the time and everything, somebody had a haunting or something, we would go. He would contact them and we would go. And now he would pay for it too. He never charged people, but we would go and we'd investigate, and we would, he had a whole room where we sit and analyze them, listen to the EVPs and go through the videos and all that stuff. And, but, I was doing that with them, for a while until I got my own group. And that was only because I, compiled enough equipment to have my own team. So then I started my own team eventually.
You're starting to have all these different experiences then as it relates to your investigations. And so by this point, it sounds like you're pretty much you've bought into the idea of the paranormal. You're all in, and I take it you're starting to gather some evidence then of some of your experiences. Is that right?
Yes, definitely.
So can you kind of take us through some of those, really pertinent experiences that stand out to you and some of that evidence?
Yes. Now, first I want to, and the only reason I'm saying this, Alex, is because there was a few people on another video, and they thought that maybe I was talking about these things as if I, still enjoyed it and was thrilled by it. But I just want to make sure that everyone knows, that's listening, that that's not the case at all. And that it really is, I'm just explaining step by step what happened to me and why, these certain things happen. And that I'm only here to warn people. It's not at all that I enjoy it. So, but yes, I had quite a few things that happened that stood out to me. One, for instance, I was at an investigation. My daughter and I went for the weekend to St. Augustine, Florida. And there's quite a few places there. They're like commercial haunts. They're places that people go into, like the lighthouse. And then there's the old jail. There's the fort. There's quite a few places there to go. So my daughter and I went there for the weekend. And we went to, like on a Saturday night, we went to the old jail. And while we were in there, we kind of scooted off from the other people. It was like a big tour, and we could kind of, wander around a little bit. My daughter and I went over to a corner, and we started doing EVPs, and we were trying to see what we could get there. And so while we were doing that, I was asking questions and everything. And next thing I know, my husband calls me on my cell phone. And I answered it. And he's like, Dana, he said, I don't know what you're doing or where you're at, but stop doing what you're doing. And I said, why? What's going on? And he said, things are happening here at the house. So he was shook up. Now, my husband, he was not into the paranormal at all. As a matter of fact, he didn't like it. So I said, what happened? Well, he said he was sitting there in the chair in the living room. And he said that the basketball that was sitting in front of him, it just went and it started rolling, and it went all the way around. It went through the kitchen, went through the other side of the kitchen into the hallway, come around there, come around the other door into the living room, and it literally stopped right where he was at.
Wow.
There was no air conditioner doing this. Nobody was, and he was upset. He wasn't like bragging about evidence or, saying that something happened that he experienced and he liked it by any means. That was an experience that he did not like. And I felt like when it happened, that was kind of like God's way maybe of showing me that when I'm doing these things, no matter where I'm at, I'm inviting that stuff to my home. And these demonic spirits are not just at a house, you know what I mean? They know where you live and they will come to your home, So it kind of taught me a couple things there, but that was one of them. That one had a big effect on me, about why I believe that. And then there was one time we went to a place that was called the Putnam Hotel, and that was in DeLand, Florida. And there was upstairs, there was a great big, it was called the Towers. And we went up there, and the rumor was that they actually had a fire up there once, and that was actually where the child care, like for the people that worked there in the hotel, they had a daycare up there and stuff, and there was kids up there and everything. And they said that they had a fire up there, and they had to end up rebuilding it. Now, I don't know if there was any children burned in the fire or anything. I don't know that for a fact, but that was some of the rumor that we heard. But anyway, we would go up there and we did get a lot of kids' voices saying fire and all kinds of things. Well, then we decided to do a table tipping, which it's a seance. And what we would do, just to explain what a table tipping seance is you would sit at a round table, and you would sit with other people, and you would hold hands on top of the table. And what we would do is we would sing songs to attract the spirits. We would, like row, row, row your boat, silly things like that. But it was like joyful kid music, and all this. So we were singing these songs and everything. And then we would start asking questions whenever we would stop. We would stop here and there, and we would, are you here? If you are, tap the table. And then we heard the tap. So we started, asking questions. Well, once we started asking questions, the table would rock. And we would say, rock once or rock twice, and we would guess, well, do you have a message for so-and-so? Or do you have a message for Dana? And then we'd say, what is your name? And then we'd go through the alphabet. Does it start with an A? Does it start with a B? And then we would guess, oh, that's my grandmother. And then, it would go like that. And so anyway, I had a ghost box, and anybody that knows what a ghost box is, it's a radio. And what it does is when you push the button, it's been that will scan for a song or whatever. What it would do was we modified the inside of it. We modified the inside of it to where it wouldn't stop. And what it would do is it would just continuously, go. And then when somebody said something, it would just, you would just hear like little voices or help or, Frank or, just things like that, short things. So anyway, I had that with me. But what I did was I had it sitting on a table behind me. And we were not using this at the time. Well, because we're doing a table tipping and, you wouldn't use something like that then. But anyway, it was behind us and it was off. So we're sitting there asking these questions and everything. And, it come to be that it was saying that it was a spirit that was trapped there and that it could not go to the light. And then, after it told us that and, a couple other things, next thing you know, the ghost box turns on and it was stopped at a song, and it was like a Christian song, something about going home. And it is sung and it says something about God. It was a religious song, and it was saying something about going home and all. So we really honestly started crying, and we thought, oh, this spirit is telling us something, it wants to go home, and we asked it, are you trapped here? Yes. Do you want to go to the light? Yes. So, we thought that we helped that spirit go to the light, and at this point, not only did I believe that I was helping people, that wanted to get rid of spirits in their home, I felt like then that I was helping the spirits too. And, now that I'm not in it, I can say that is a belief called postmortem salvation. And that's not biblical. People are saved before they die. There's no way to get saved after you die. So, that was just one thing that it got to me, because like I said, I thought I was helping spirits then, to get to the light, as if Jesus can't do it, but a ghost hunter can, that of course I should have known that can't be true. So.
Yeah, some incredible experiences, and also there's a couple of things that come to mind to me. One is that the experiences that you're having again are not just witnessed by yourself or experienced by yourself. There's multiple people there to corroborate what's going on, which again
we
would be
recorded it too. We had it on film. Yes.
Yeah. Which
Definitely.
I say that again because I know that there's skeptics out there that don't believe in anything spiritual or the paranormal. So I just think it's really important to emphasize that. And also, I really appreciate that you emphasize that it wasn't just the experiences themselves as thrilling as they were at the time, but it was the idea that you were helping these spirits, and so that was an aspect of it that was probably felt very fulfilling for you and made you feel like you were making a difference. So there were multiple things going on here.
Yes.
I also find it fascinating that you have mentioned before that these entities that you were dealing with, many times they wouldn't even make themselves known until after you put the equipment away. Can you kind of speak on that a little bit?
Yes. Yes, they would. Yes, I'm trying to think of what happened. Oh yeah, there was this one place we went to, and it was at a home, and well, a lady, it was a suicide. So we went there. We wanted to, see what we could get. We went there and we had the equipment out and the cameras. So what we had was the stationary cameras on tripods, and so it was a lot of cameras. We had our ghost box. We also had our what was it called? EMF pump, which is it's a thing that it has electromagnetic energy or whatever you call it. But I don't know all the specifics, but I could tell you that everybody says that they work, and they even have them on the shows and stuff. But the belief is that if you emit this energy or whatever you would call it out, that it would attract something that is also has that same type of properties. Because like a lot of people, if you have an EMF detector and you're ghost hunting, usually if there's a spirit there and you're talking to one or whatnot, it'll go off. So the belief is that they have the same properties so that it would attract ghosts. So anyway, we had a lot of equipment there, and we were, we did everything. We could not get anything, nothing in pictures, nothing on recordings, nothing. So one of my friends that was going to come and join us on the investigation, she was running late, and she kept calling me. I'm sorry, I had to stop here and there, So anyway, when we about the time we give up and wanted to just leave, everybody started packing up, and then she showed up. So I told her, I says, well, I said, I tell you what, everybody's already, packing up for the night. They're about to put it on the truck. Maybe me and you could just stay here, with our little stationary cameras and just, maybe see if we get anything with that. I said, I'm really sorry. We did wait as long as we could. So she agreed and everything. So everybody left but me and her. So we're sitting there and we're asking questions and everything. And you could even hear it on the recorder too. But we was sitting there and all of a sudden we were like in the living room. And then we all of a sudden heard a big bang in the back room. And then we heard it again, like like a couple bangs, like something was going on. And so we jumped up and we're like, whoa, because honestly, at this point, not only was I thinking it was a haunting, I thought maybe somebody was breaking in, so we run out of the house and before we got out of the house, we went to the front door. We're trying to get the door open. It's stuck. I mean, we couldn't even turn the knob, nothing. And then all of a sudden, it opened. So I was like, oh, we can't get out. I can't get it open. So we got out. And then we got outside. We went around. There. By the way, there's no other doors. There's like a long stairway that goes up. And then there's a door that you can go in up there. And that's locked up. They even showed us before they left that it was a padlock on it. And so anyway, we went around. There's no one there. So we're like, oh my goodness, did you hear that? And we're talking about it. Well, we finally get up the nerve to go back up to the door and open it and just kind of peek in and maybe ask questions again with our little hand. Well, actually, we was using our phones at this point. So we go up to the thing and to the door and we're standing there and we're talking, and we're like, is that a shadow over there? Is that one of it? And we're talking and all of a sudden we hear the water turn on in the bathroom. And I said, you hear that? And then it was like full blast. And I was like, I mean, we just left. We locked up. We left. But it's weird how we were so frustrated though, because it was like, we really didn't have much evidence, the video, because then you can do somebody can be in a back room and make noises, you can get that on your recorder, on your voice recorder, but it doesn't prove anything. So we were really mad and we're like, gosh, why did it happen after all the cameras left and everything? So that was one time that happened. So then we went with this was when we went with the other group, and we went to, where is it? Over by DeLand, St. Helen. We went to a big motel over there, and they literally let us just have the whole hotel for the night. It was like a bed and breakfast. It was really nice, little charming little motel. So they let us have it. There was no one in it that night, no one. So we went in there, we put up all the equipment and everything, and the same thing. We couldn't catch nothing. There was nothing. I mean, we had like a couple pictures of like dust orbs or something like that, but nothing. So me and my daughter, we drove up by ourselves, and then the other guy and the other man, they drove up in their van. So they got all the equipment up, put it in his van, and he left. And I told him, I says, you know what? Because we were so tired. It was late. It was like 3:00 in the morning. And I said, you know what? I'm going to sleep. Because he told me that the guy said that we could have it till like 7:00 in the morning, the next morning. So I said, well, I think we're going to sleep. And then we'll just get up early and leave before they come. And he said, that's okay. So what we did was, that's what we were going to do. So they left. And me and my daughter, we went upstairs and, into one of the rooms. So we're in there, we're laying down. And all of a sudden we hear a noise downstairs. And I'm thinking, because we knew this place was empty. And we knew that door was locked because we checked before we went up there. And so we're laying there, we hear noises. And we're like, at this point, we're like, oh my God, is somebody breaking in? Because we're here by ourselves. I mean, we felt super vulnerable, and next thing you know, we hear the noises, and then we hear footsteps coming up the stairs. Oh my gosh, we were so scared laying there because we're like, what are we going to do? There's nobody here, to protect us if something were to happen. And these footsteps kept coming up the stairs, and it sounded as if it stopped right there in front of the room. And we were like, oh my God, here we go. We're going to get shot. Something's going to happen, Oh my gosh. And we were like, trying to peek to see who it was because it was dark. And we tried to peek to see what. We didn't see nobody over there, and because we would have seen by the shadow, through the door because the light, like the street light outside or whatnot. And we didn't see nobody there. And right after all that, we waited about maybe 5 minutes, and we were like, okay, we don't hear no more noises. And we got up, and we, went and we started walking around, looking around. And, actually, I think we kind of looked around after the first noises we heard too. But anyway, I can't remember all. I'm sorry, but anyway, so we went out looking around. There was nobody there, and we were like, that was something. That was paranormal, And I'm like, man, if we could have had cameras up and the noises, recorded at the same time to verify and show there was noise, the sound of footsteps going up the stairs, but yet there was nobody going up the stairs. That would have been evidence. But it's almost like these spirits, they give you, it's almost like they throw out bait. When you first get into it, it's like they give you the evidence. They let you, they appear to you, they do manifest in whatever ways, but it's almost like they let you get the evidence to lure you in. And then once you get into it and you really start investing, I mean, we were getting all kinds of equipment, we were traveling, we were, doing, it was costing a lot of money. And then they start doing that. It's like you couldn't get the evidence, and it was just so aggravating, but it was almost, to me, it's almost like they do that on purpose. They were, and it is very disappointing when it happens. And any investigator would say the same thing, I'm sure.
Yeah, it really makes me think about like when you're at the casino, it's like your first time gambling, all of a sudden you make it big that first time, and then you go back and you're never able to replicate that first time winning. And you just keep on hoping, oh, this is going to be the time, this is going to be the time. And it never happens.
Yes.
And yeah, so I just really appreciated that. And I also wanted to say, there's a couple things that make me think about like my time when I was investigating the paranormal and quote ghosts. A lot of times people would say that there was kind of a trickster element to these things. They would kind of, like you were saying, give you some bait and kind of make you think that there was some pattern here that you could follow up on to try to get these things to kind of come under control, so to speak. And all of a sudden, as soon as you think you haven't figured out, then you can no longer get the evidence, or what you thought was for sure a ghost, a haunting. All of a sudden, you can't get anything to replicate as it once was. So it really highlights even what goes on in many people that don't necessarily believe that this is demonic like we do. A lot of people do in the paranormal community still give credence to the fact that there's a trickster element here, and there seems to be an intelligence here, and trying to kind of just give it just enough, give the investigator just enough to keep them engaged, and all of a sudden just kind of disappear. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to ask is how then did you notice how can you recall how your beliefs then in God and Christianity were overlapping at the time with your investigations, or was it something that you were able to kind of put together and you just kind of you were doing one on one day and one on the other day, or how did you reconcile those two actions and beliefs?
Yes, they were definitely overlapping because I got to believing in, well, earthbound spirits was the big one, really. But believing that spirits are here, after they pass away. And well, see, my biggest thing was that I went to church and everything, but I was not reading my Bible. I did not know what the Bible said. And I did not know that every word of it is true. And you could really bet your life on that. But anyway, I started believing in like reincarnation. Actually, I would have so many things happen. It was almost like my nickname was like deja vu, because it was just so many weird things. I would like dream of being somewhere, or and then literally I would go in a place that looked just like that, or I would think about somebody, and then I go in a store and there they are, somebody I hadn't seen in a long time. Whenever I went to North Carolina, where my husband's family lived, and I went there, it was, I can't even explain how much I felt like I lived there before in the past. And I mean, the people look so familiar. The places look so familiar. So I started believing in reincarnation, and I also started believing in doing some like Wiccan practices, and, like burning sage, and doing, different kind of spiritual cleansing techniques like they do, and things like that. But none of the stuff would work,
Mm-hmm.
which we're going to touch on that. But yeah, they definitely started overlapping. And I want to say that in the paranormal community, one of the big things there is syncretism. People believe in so many different, it's like they borrow bits and pieces from different religions. I mean, there would be somebody there Wiccan and say, leave in the name of Jesus when they got scared, but
Right.
they were not a Christian, So, I mean, it was just like that. Everybody would just mix up the different religions, and that was really, really odd that's the way it happens.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I had never really heard it put exactly as you did, because I know that the synchronicities a lot of times they're really overlapped in the paranormal community. But it's almost like your experiences there with the ghost investigating caused a doorway to kind of open up in your mind to make it seem like these things were happening, more likely happening than what you thought before. It was almost like it was shifting the way that you were thinking and perceiving things. That's a really interesting way to put it. I
Yeah.
never heard it put it exactly like that. Um, these experiences then, from what I understand, kind of culminate then in a really traumatic event that really shifted your understanding of what maybe was going on here. Can you kind of talk about that big event with as it relates to that little girl spirit?
Yes. There was an investigation that we went to, but what happened was the man that lives in the house. So when I say man, he was probably about like 19 years old. He was a young man, but he was always at this house with the girl. They were like best friends, and I'm pretty sure he lived there. If not, they were like best friends. He was always there, but he was getting thrown, like thrown up against the wall and thrown up against the refrigerator. I heard that one too. But this entity was violent with him. And so one time when it threw him, it hurt his back. So he went to the hospital. And when he went to the hospital, the doctor, when he told the doctor what happened, the doctor sent him to Circles of Care, which here in Florida, it's a place that it's a mental institution. And so anyway, it was for observation and evaluation. So while he was there, and he had told the nurse there what happened. Well, the nurse actually was also into the paranormal. Well, she believed him. So she went ahead and she contacted a friend of mine, which was also this other lady had her own group also. So she called and she asked if we could take the case because she had so many cases. She didn't have time to do this one too. And so I said, oh, sure, especially knowing that it was physical attacks. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but a lot of investigators like to get those cases. You know what I'm saying? Uh,
Sure.
they feel like it's more paranormal activity is going to happen and all this. So we like to get the more severe cases. So the man got out of Circles of Care the next week. So we had set it up to go that next week. Well, when we went there, a lot of the EVPs we got was nasty EVPs. Actually, that happened at the preliminary investigation. We went there just to ask questions before we went there for the big investigation. So anyway, we got a lot of nasty EVPs and stuff. So we were a little bit worried, like, oh boy, what's going to happen, So actually, one of the members went to a Catholic church and talked to the priest there and asked, well, what should we do to make sure that we're safe and all this? Well, he gave her a bottle of holy water, So anyway, we took that with us too. And of course, I had my little spiritual cleaning case, and it had sage in it and rosary beads, all this. And I'm not even Catholic, but that's how it worked. So anyway, I took all these things with us. And so when we first got there, we're walking around and we're putting this water and we're over the doors and praying over the doors and everything. And so actually one of my investigators on my team came up to me and he's like, why are you doing that? And I said, well, I just want to make sure that we're safe and maybe, we'll get rid of it. And he was saying, why are you doing that? We want something to happen first. We want to get evidence. And I'm like, oh my goodness, these people's having a problem here, and they want to get rid of it. But anyway, that's how it is. That's how a lot of investigators are, It's all about the evidence. But so anyway, while we were there, we got a little bit of things happening. We were asking questions. We were using dowsing rods, by the way. Dowsing rods are these copper little things that they're little wands. They're shaped like an L, and they're what people used to use for what they call water witching. And they would go around. We would go around with them, and they would have a little loose little cylinder around the handle of them, so that way they could swing freely. When we'd ask questions, so we would say, first we would establish what is your yes, and then it would either wise open up or close. So if it opened up, then we'd say, what is your no, and then it would close. So we would find out that before we start asking questions. So we would ask questions, and next thing you know, the door would open, and then next thing you know, it would start to close, and so we were getting a little bit of activity. So it got to where it was getting late, and the guy came there. Actually, what he did was he left because the family was trying to give us the house for the night up until probably around 3:00 is what we told them, and let us have a run of the house. So a couple of them went off. Well, there was a couple that stayed there. It was the girl's grandmother and mother. They were sitting on the porch watching the monitor systems, of the cameras that we had set up. And so he finally come back and he asked me, he says, what's going on? And we told him, and he says, well, why don't you let me go in there with you? Because whatever it is, it doesn't like me, maybe it'll react if I'm in there. And we were like, oh man, you're going to get, what if it throws you or does something, And he was like, no, it's okay. I'm here all the time, So we're like, well, he's always here. So what's it matter, So we let him go in there with us. And my daughter and me was sitting on the bed. And so I had the handheld camcorder, and my daughter was like right behind me. So the other investigator that was going to use the dowsing rods, he was sitting across from me. And then the man was standing next to him, facing me and him, kind of watching what the dowsing rods did and all this. So, excuse me. So he started asking the questions, and he was asking it like, he was trying to provoke it. And he was like, do you like, I'll just say Dawn, because I don't want to use a real name. And do you like Dawn? And it said no. And then he says, are you afraid of Dawn? And it said no. And so he finally asked the last question. It was like he was really provoking it. And he says, so why don't you come out so I can kick your. And next thing you know, this dowsing rod come back like really swift, And then we could hear like a little bit of, and I didn't hear it to my naked ear, while it happened. It was actually on the recorder that I heard it afterwards. But there was a light little growl. And next thing you know, Dawn just went I mean, it happened so fast and so hard. We thought honestly that something hit the outside of the house, like a car or a plane. I mean, it was that loud. It was so loud.
Wow.
And so this guy, what happened was he was facing this way. And next thing you know, when we turned the light on to see what happened, because it was dark, and we were I was looking through the infrared camera, and with the infrared, you could see, at nighttime. So I could see the one doing the dowsing rods, and then I barely could see something move next to him when it happened. So I turned the light on, and there he is. He's turned around all the way around, and he's laying up against the wall like this. And there was a file cabinet right between him and the wall. The file cabinet had a big dent in it. And so he was laying there, and next thing you know, he starts crying. Now, this is a big guy. He seemed like somebody that would be prideful and not, you know what I mean? Not showing his feelings in front of people or anything, but he started crying. And I was like, oh my gosh, and so, we were talking to him, and finally we got him up. And once we got him up, he started cussing. And he was like, where are you at? Come out now. I mean, he was fed up. This thing, it was hurting him. I mean, it was attacking him. And so they took him, and tried to get him outside. Well, to back up just a little bit, after he got thrown, we were yelling out the door at the people that was on the porch to come in, because we didn't know. We thought we was going to need help. We didn't know if we was going to need an ambulance or what, but they came in. Well, it took a few minutes for them to come in. And when they come in there, what happened was they told us that the grandmother had just got thrown off the porch. So not only did it throw him, but it threw the grandmother off the front porch. So this was supposedly the spirit of a little girl. Because when we came there to do the preliminary investigation, and we, was asking questions and everything, the young lady that lived there, now I think she was probably around 16, 17 years old. She, all of a sudden, she was going into trances is what she would do, which actually, looking back at it all, that was probably what was inviting something in. But she was doing these trances and stuff, and all of a sudden she would act like a young girl that was being abused by her father. And she ran into the closet, and she was sitting there, and she was acting like he was doing stuff to her, and all this. So she would tell us it's Amanda. I think that was the name of it. That the spirit's name is Amanda. She's only, I forget how old, maybe 5 or something like that. She told us years old, and she was killed here and by her father and all this stuff. So we believed that it was the spirit of a little girl, but after it was thrown, it made me think, because there's one thing that the paranormal community does agree upon, most of them, is that sometimes demonic spirits will pretend to be the spirit of a little girl or somebody vulnerable that you would have pity on. You know what I mean? Like maybe a woman that was trying to get away from her husband, or an evil man in the house was keeping her there and she couldn't leave. She was trapped, stuff like that. So I was thinking to myself, what if, how do we know that if sometimes that's the case, how do we know that's not always the case? Because the Bible does say, I'm saying that now. Back then I didn't really know the Bible, but the Bible does say that Satan is the father of lies. Think about think about this. Say a person is going to go rob a bank. They're going to scope that bank out. They're going to watch it. They're going to maybe get someone else to help them. They're going to watch where the cameras are. They're going to, get their stuff that they need to get into the safes. They're going to, they plan it out. You know what I mean? It's a scheme, So think about what the enemy can do. If we can scheme and, manipulate and do things, think about what they can do. they're not gonna, like, investigators will go into a place and they'll say, now I literally had saw, not me, but saw a investigator on TV on one of those shows say, well, when it knocks, it's knocking lightly. So since it's knocking lightly, it means it's not a bad spirit. If it was a bad spirit, it would knock hard. You see what I mean? And it's like,
Yeah.
the only evidence they get is what the demonic or the spirit tells them, or how it, like, say if someone was murdered in a house and they were killed by a certain table, it would be like it would be over there and doing things. They know what happened there, and they can make up all this stuff. They can manifest however they want to deceive you. They're not going to sit there and that'd be like them coming out and telling you, yeah, it's me. They're not going to do that. They're going to deceive us, and that's exactly what was going on. And then I don't know if you want me to bring this up now, but then I started looking into the Bible, because my brother and my mom, a couple of my family members were telling me, Dana, these spirits you're talking to they're not ghosts, they're demons, because the Bible says that we're no longer here after we die. And I kept thinking, no, well, my brother one time, he come up with that verse from Deuteronomy that said, let nobody be found among you that is, using divination, that's communicating with evil, familiar spirits, and all these things. So I was, when I seen that, I thought, well, that's not really what I'm doing. That's what they used to do in the old days. And they would literally call up spirits, and it wasn't the same thing I'm doing. I mean, it's such denial, it was such denial, because looking back at it now, I'm like, it was black and white. I refused to see it because I was having fun. There was a thrilling factor to it all, and that thrilling factor is almost like that gets to be addicting. It really does. Just like when someone drinks or, uses drugs or whatever, it actually has the same kind of effect. It releases dopamine in your brain, so now I can see why it was so addicting. I mean, I was always looking for the next equipment, the new equipment that people are using. Or, I mean, on Fridays, I'm going to the store, making sure I have enough flashlights for the weekend, batteries for all my stuff. Now that's all I would think of. It's addicting. It really is.
Well, that is it for part 1 of 2, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I wanted to give everybody the opportunity to find out where you can find Dana online, and she has a blog and a YouTube channel. You can go to her blog. It's called spiritualrealities.org, and her YouTube site, Spiritual Realities with Dana Emanuel, and find her at both of those places. Both are great resources that expose the paranormal for what they are. If you got anything from today's episode, you're going to love the resources that she has, both informational resources and testimonies, both at her blog and at her YouTube channel. She was also kind enough to provide her Facebook. So it's just on Facebook, Dana Emanuel, or you can just type in facebook.com/exposing the enemy. All this will be below in the description, both on YouTube and the podcast apps. If you could share this with one person, I would really appreciate that. And that does a lot to help us out. And a reminder too, if you could please subscribe to us wherever you're listening to us on your podcast app or on YouTube. That also does a lot to help get the word out about the podcast. It could help somebody find the show that you've been enjoying for the last few weeks. So thank you so much for doing that. Also, if you could rate and review us at whatever podcast app that you're listening to us on, that also does a lot as well. So thank you so much for doing those things, and thank you so much for tuning in. Also, just a reminder to send your testimony to me at spiritanswerspodcast@gmail.com. That testimony can be a miraculous encounter, a healing, New Age to Jesus testimony. You can kind of take a look back now and see some of the different testimonies that we've had on the show and kind of get an understanding of what kind of we do here. And if you have anything like that, please feel free to send your testimony in. We have an option for audio only as well if you don't want to be on video. Reminder too that we have a Facebook group. You can join us there, and if you feel so inclined, there is an option to donate to the podcast below as well, wherever you're listening to this. That is all I have for you this week. Thank you so much for tuning in again. I will be praying for you, and I look forward to seeing you next week in part 2. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.